Yeah.
That's better. Someone said that Scott was in the town office today.
I can't hear any talking. My dogs are raising heck out here. I got 3 of them going after each other. Oh, one's in the kennel now. I can see you. Well, we have a quorum.
David,
Yes.
did you say Scott was in the town office today and he said he'd be here?
He was in the town office today and picked up his information. Didn't say he wouldn't be here.
All right. We'll give him another minute and then we'll get started.
He may do what I almost did, which was planning on going to the town office for the meeting tonight.
Maybe. Do you have any applicants lined up for us yet, David?
Alice is on, Joe Martin, John Williams, Kevin Corbett, Lisa Vickers, and Tim Forrester.
Okay.
All logged on as attendees. When you start, I'm going to mute myself and take myself off the screen, but I'll be listening. So when you want something done, just holler.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Well, it's 7:01. I think we can call the June 24th planning board meeting to order. As a reminder to the board members and anyone watching this evening, this remote meeting is being conducted in accordance with the Freedom of Access Act, which means the meeting has to have been advertised. Members can speak to each other and hear each other, and anyone watching from the public is able to hear and speak if it's public hearing, of course, as well. So, and the only other thing is all votes that we take, we can't do it by show of hands. We have to do a roll call vote for these meetings. If we could, I think we should announce our names again. So anyone watching, I don't know if they get to see our names. I'm Mike Cummins, I'm the chairman. If you could go around and announce your names.
Jay Foster, I'm an alternate.
Sandy Delano,
Sorry, Nancy Weezer.
Right, Terry, code officer.
Seeing as we need Jay to have a quorum tonight, I guess you're automatically become a voting member as the only alternate here. Is that correct, Jay?
I don't know how automatic it is, but I think I should be appointed to vote by you.
all in favor?
Someone move, Sandy moves that we appoint Jay, the alternate member, as a voting member tonight. I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Sandy,
Aye.
Mike Cummins, Jay. Okay, Jay is an active member tonight. We have 3 items on the agenda this evening. We have 2 commercial site plan reviews and a shoreland zoning application. When we left last meeting, the first application is the motel on Route 1. We had discussed that. We got some feedback from the attorney as far as whether we would be approving the existing site plan and then approving changes to the site plan. It was her opinion that we merely recognize the motel as an existing use of the site. We wouldn't be approving it or voting on it. And then any changes to that would fall under the ordinance of site plan review. So that's what we'll be doing tonight. She's briefly explained the project last meeting, which I think we were considering a pre-application meeting anyhow. So I think we're beyond that stage of the application process. I don't recall whether the code officer has determined it to be a major or minor.
It's a major.
A major, okay.
It was-
Can I ask a question?
Yes,
We have 2 applications. We have an application for the commercial site plan. We have an application for the food service through a window onto a deck. which application are we reviewing?
Mike, can I address that?
What was that, Frank?
I said, may I address that question?
Yes, yep.
I have wording from Sally that specifically says the planning board should not sign the existing conditions plan. The town just wants documentation of the existing conditions. It does not want to turn that into a site plan. Period. So, and the next step would be after you hear what is currently there, then at that point in time, you would review sections 11 and 12, taking into consideration the amendment as to what it might have on any of the general review standards. That's Sally's input. So you're not going to have to look at it as two separate applications so far as reviewing as a site plan. The first one is just to document what's there. You're not signing off anything.
So when the question is asked, what do we classify it as? You said it's a major. If we're just doing the food service review, taking into consideration the commercial site that exists prior to the ordinance coming to being, is it still a major?
That's correct. The project will always remain a major because it's over 5,000 square feet. And what you're doing is an amendment to that 5,000 square foot plus commercial site plan.
That's not an approved commercial site plan. There is no approval for that site
No,
as a commercial site plan.
correct. What you're doing, Jay, the only thing we need to do is first identify what is on the site. Okay, and
I
then,
agree.
all right, then what you're going to do is go through your general review standards to see what or which, if any of those, are going to be impacted by the amendment to the existing site.
I agree with that up to the point where you said amendment. Again, we have two applications in front of us. One is for a commercial site plan review. The other is for food service through the window onto an 8-foot deck. Which one are we reviewing?
I think when she initially applied, there were two applications. One to get the commercial site plan that is existing approved. We're not doing
Agreed.
that now.
So-
Under advice.
So
of the
what we
attorney.
are doing is the application that asks for the permission to do the food service through the window onto the 8-foot deck she wants to build.
That is after we document what is there today.
Okay. Got that. So again, the question was, what are we reviewing it as classification? Is it a major or a minor?
It is a major because it's over 5,000 square feet, Jay. We're not reviewing that as a commercial site plan, but when all is said and done, when it is documented, it will stay 5,000 square feet. So I'm not sure what the question you're asking has to do with documenting what's there.
Yes, we are reviewing an application to approve food service from a kitchen through a window onto an 8-foot deck that is being requested to be constructed on a site that is an unapproved commercial site. We have to take into consideration the function of the site as it exists right now, according to Sally's letter.
That's right. She said
If we
review
If we
11.
approve this review, if we review this and approve it, she's going to have permission from the Lincolnville Planning Board to provide food service through that window onto that constructed deck. And that's it.
That's it.
Okay. I don't think that's a
That's
major
correct, yeah.
project, but okay, I'll go along with that. It may be semantics.
Okay, so
All right, so now is she with us this evening? David?
She is. You ready for her?
Yes.
Okay. She should be headed your way.
Hi,
Hi, Alice.
Hi, Alice, how are you?
I'm good in the fog, but everybody is.
Were you able to hear what we were discussing?
Yes, I was.
Oh, okay, I just wanted to make sure that you caught all that. So we're not doing two separate commercial site plan reviews. We're merely acknowledging the existing motel and then approving the site plan for the changed or the additional use.
Is that
So
okay with the applicant?
if you could review what's happening again on the site, we all have the site plan that you submitted. That would be helpful to refresh our memories.
Yes, certainly. So what I'm looking to do is to work with the existing structure here and just to really expand the use of the motel from offering strictly lodging to offering additionally food service. And the plan is to do so out of a takeout window that already exists. And I'm just asking for permission from the town to be able to do that because I have to change my license with the state to switch from strictly a lodging license, which I now have, to a food lodging license as well. So I want to make sure that everything is approved by the town in order to make this small change to the business.
And from what I remember, the state had asked you to get that town approval before they would consider your application.
Yeah, my understanding was that I needed to do so with the town before even applying to the state because it has been a very long time since anything like this has existed on the property. And so I wanted to make sure that I was in compliance with the town of Lincolnville before asking for, anyone to come down, the health inspector to come down from the state to make this change because, I want to make sure that I'm, going about this in the proper way. And so I wanted to make sure that Lincolnville was happy with it before I take it to the state, which is just the process of having a health inspection happen.
Okay. All right. So does everyone have the checklist of how we're supposed to handle this as far as her application being considered complete and notifying the abutters? I believe, Frank, is it true that the abutters have to be notified by mail prior to us considering the application complete?
Not in this scenario. Sally merely said that you need to document what's there.
Sally said what?
Her words are, you need to document the existing conditions now. And once you've done that, if you, as you're reviewing it, if you look at the amendment and say it's worthy of requiring a notification of the abutters and the public, then you do so.
No, I thought the letter said once we would be treating it as regular site plan review.
Okay, I'm looking at a letter, and I'll read you the whole paragraph. And it says, let's see. The planning board should not sign the existing condition plan. The town just wants documentation of the existing conditions. There's no voting on anything, but it does not want to turn that into a site plan. In parentheses, an existing condition would not likely meet current site plan review standards, and it wouldn't. And so the question was, in other words, what if there was no amendment to submitted just a commercial site plan to have recorded an existing site? Would this just require a review of the ordinance standards for the record? Her answer is no. Again, the town just wants documentation of the existing conditions. Anything new is what requires site plan review and approval. And that's what we're aiming at now.
Okay, I guess that's what I'm questioning is when she says anything new is what requires site plan review and
Exactly.
approval.
Right.
Well, it's not new, it's a change of use.
So,
That's why 2.1 triggers the commercial site plan review. Both A and D trigger it. If we're not going to do that, then all we're going to do is say there's a motel there and that the owner of the motel is asking permission to do a food service through a window under a deck.
Jay, Dave and I reviewed this with Sally in depth. It all took place at the last meeting. And what I just read to you is the encapsulation of this amendment. Call it a change of use, call it an amendment, whatever it is It requires commercial site plan review because you're changing what's there on the site.
The application for the food service requires site plan review.
That's what Sally said.
Yes,
I agree
Right.
with, that's what she says. Yes, I agree with that.
Right. So what's your point?
All right. So the business about documentation, you could talk about documentation of the existing site. What constitutes documentation of the existing site?
Well, if you want to go overboard and simplify it, I would say if you rapidly go through the submissions required. You go through the submissions required, and that tells you what's on the site as to what is there. And then next step would be to go through sections 11 and 12, because now you're taking what exists there and you're adding a change to it. And now, so what you're looking at as the board is to see, is there any impact on any of the 22 general standards?
Yes.
And you'd still vote on each one of the 22.
So anything in those review standards of 11, 12, and she left out 13, but I don't think it really applies, but anything in those review standards of 11 and 12 that could affect the application for the food service should be taken into consideration, is the way she wrote it.
That's correct.
Okay, can I ask the applicant a question?
yes.
Alice, do you understand
Sure.
that when we're done with this review, you will not have an approved commercial site plan?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes. I do understand that. And what I'm looking for is, permission to, sorry, my dog is in there fighting. What my main goal for this is to be able to have permission to do the food service project.
Okay, great.
And if it is, the commercial site plan approval is not contingent on that, it would be great if it could be recognized because it's been in existence for a long time, but I understand that that is a different and more complex process. And I feel like I have submitted the materials for it, but my main objective is to get your approval to be able to do the food service.
okay. And when you spoke to the state and you said they told you that you needed permission from the town to check with the town and get approval from them, was that just for the food service or was the site involved in that? Or didn't you get clarity on that?
The site was not in, the site was not involved in it. My understanding that my need to confirm with this state came from multiple conversations with Frank. I've been working on this, for the last 5 years. And the understanding was that when I purchased this property, it was a lodging property. So I immediately, the food service has always been a goal of mine. And so I reached out to Gartley and Dorsey my very first year of ownership and had the commercial site plan drawn because I knew at some point that my understanding was that at some point I would want that to be approved by the town of Lincolnville. I had the site plan amended this year to reflect changes in landscaping and other things in order to have it be as up to date as possible before presenting. Because I have finally reached the juncture where I am trying to pursue the food side of the business. And so it's not strictly coming from the state. This is my effort to be as compliant as possible with, any local regulations and with the state.
My question was, are you comfortable with the fact that if you get town approval for this food service, that the state will approve that once the town has approved it for your license to change?
I would hope so.
Okay,
Yes,
okay, good.
I see no reason why they would not.
As I understand it, you have two separate licenses, one for the lodging, which already exists, and then there's a separate license for the food service. Is that correct? You already have the lodging license, so there's nothing as far as the cabins or the cottage,
Yes.
the rooms, it comes into play.
No, the lodging license is all set. It's a simple renewal every year. I submit a water test
Right.
and no change there. But I didn't want to file for a food license because I felt that was changing the use of the property without local approval before I went to the state.
Okay. So at this stage of the game, the board has, since we're treating it as we're recognizing the existing use, and we're giving commercial site plan review on the change, and it's considered a major project. Do we need to notify the abutters prior to considering the application complete like we normally do in a site plan review? Right.
As I said, what the town attorney is saying, tonight, you should document what is there on the site. And then you should consider what the change is. And now you're gonna make a judgment. Don't forget, there's nothing documented in our ordinance that tells you how to handle this situation. This is new. So therefore, the attorney is saying to you, you're not going through the normal process of pre-application of receiving a new application with this existing site. All you're doing is documenting what's there. Now, once you start doing the review, if you come to the point, you find that it's significant enough that you should notify the abutters, then you would notify the abutters and you would have to have another meeting. There's nothing in the ordinance that covers anything we're talking about tonight. And that's your town attorney's position. This is how you handle it because it's not documented. Going ahead, I recommend the board put down that you need to have an insert into our ordinance for existing commercial sites. But tonight, all you're doing, document what's there and then go to 11 and 12.
I don't, well, I agree, we're recognizing what's there. We're making that determination. As far as with the attorney telling us we have to do the site plan review, I don't think she's saying we can wrap it up in one night without a public hearing and go through all the criteria. I don't think she's saying that. That's not what I got from it.
Well, let's see, the previous.
And from the last sentence in her letter, anything new is what requires site plan review and approval. When she says it requires site plan review and approval, I assumed we were.
Her second, the letter that all of you got on June the 8th, she said, taking into consideration the existence of the current use of the property that will continue, the planning board can then determine if the proposed new activity meets the site plan review provisions of land use ordinance 11 and 12. She does not say to go back. If you go back, then you're talking about notifying the abutters or the whole 9 yards. She is saying move ahead to section 11 and 12. Those are her words and you all have that. Now, if you're gonna go against that, I don't know what to tell you.
How do we determine if the proposed new activity meets the site plan review provisions of the land use ordinance, section 11 and 12? How do we determine that?
Like you would any other application, you're going to take each one of those. For example, you're going to say lighting.
That's what Mike just said.
I'm saying you're going to say the example of lighting, and then you're going to say, does what the applicant is doing have any effect on lighting? And then you would vote on it. Yes, or no, it doesn't. And then you'd move on to the next one. That's it.
Yeah, that's what Mike just said. We have to review it.
Yes,
Yes, okay.
I've been saying that.
And at the same time, we're reviewing it, according to Sally's letter, where she says, we have to keep in mind the use of the commercial site that's not approved as a commercial site. In other words, it's being used as a motel.
To see if that particular item that you're reviewing is not going to be compounded by the addition of this.
Right.
My personal opinion is I don't think it will. And she submitted, at least 90–95% of the information we need to approve this. And I think it's just a matter of going through it properly. And I want the board to be comfortable with the way in which we do this, that we don't, do it all in one night and miss some important features. We get an abutter who complains about traffic or something because of this food takeout after the fact, and when we haven't gone through the application correctly. We just want to make sure we do it right. I don't see anything too controversial here or something that's going to make the site dangerous or unhealthy, but I think we have to approve it in accordance with the ordinance.
Mike, maybe we should clarify the record, and Alice can jump in here on this. This is not a food takeout service for general public to come and take out food. This is for service of your customers that are customers of the motel, correct?
But that's documented.
Let her answer.
Well, we, at this juncture, and in terms of what this season looks like for me, I'm happy to take it either way. Obviously, as a business, for me to expand into a food service business, to be able to serve the general public would be far, my maximum capacity at this business is 26 guests. That's 2 bodies in all of the 13 beds that I have. If we want to start and say, okay, it's only for guests, that's one way forward. But ideally, I would like permission to be able to serve a greater audience. And I don't think that the impact is incredibly dramatic, to be able to say there are other things. But for me, ideally, in the long term, I would like to be able to serve a population more than guests alone.
The application that we have, that was submitted to us says to add a takeout window for morning, afternoon food and drink service to existing motel. Change or use from lodging only to eating, only construction of an 8x6 deck. That's what it says. So if we approve that, that's what's going to be approved. So if you want to expand your business to go to serving the general public for food to be taken out, that'll be an amendment to this approved plan. You'll have to come back to the planning board.
Certainly, my understanding, like the way that I worded that, I didn't think that was specific to guests. I thought that
unless you want to change that.
Written. Well, I thought that the way that it was written was to serve anyone.
Okay.
It does not say to serve only guests.
I read it as guests only.
Okay. My intention was not to serve guests only. I would like to be able to serve more people. I mean, a takeout window that serves, possibly 26 people is not really the best business model. So I would like to have the option to be able to serve additional guests, but as we are already into the season, if it needs to be guest specific, at least at this juncture, I'm happy to use that as a starting place, because I know that, that would not generate any additional traffic that would impact the neighbors. But as a long-term business model, and with my intention with submitting it, was that I would have the option of serving others as well in the community.
Mike, I'm reading from the application, so I don't know if there's an option there or not, unless you want us to change it.
Well, it seemed in the original application, it was just for the people staying at the motel. It is a little bit different scenario of people coming in off the street to grab things to eat.
It is a different scenario. You may wind up with a super burger that half the town of Camden has to have every Thursday night.
That's true.
As long as Alice understands what we're doing here and it's clear to her that her application requests just for the motel people, customers to be served. If she wants to change the application to include a food service takeout place, we can review that also. But what we end up reviewing tonight will be the application for serving the motel customers.
And if it were to be external customers, that's a different meeting.
If she wants to bring it back for an amendment to that approved plan, yes.
honestly, my goal at this juncture is to, try to start this process and try to see. And my understanding, I thought the way that I had worded it was to include outside people as well. I believe that there is a section, and I'm just looking for it here, that would, to add food service to the motel to service guests via an anything. But, I also in section K refer to, an estimate of outside potential guests, and, try to factor, in that possibility. I think that it would be nice to be able to say, if someone wanted to stop by and have a snack on the deck or something, to be able to include them. But if it's much more difficult to do that, if that's a whole separate process, it's going to take, another few months, I can wait on that. Especially this season, if you have to stay here in order to get food, that's fine. But ideally, yes, I would like to be able to serve more people than just people who are in residence.
Okay, just to clarify all
Be
this,
honest.
just to
Yeah.
clarify all this, her original, or not original, but one of the two applications that she submitted to the town office says add food service to existing motel via a takeout window in place, change use from lodging to eating and lodging. That's the wording you're referring to that would allow you to serve the general public food service, correct?
Yes.
Okay. We have two applications and we have to decide which application we're going to review. One is going to trigger commercial site plan review, and the other is going to trigger a review for her application, taking into consideration the fact that it's in a motel. Am I correct there?
I thought that the two applications were previously submitted, two applications. One was for recognition and approval of the original site,
Yes.
which is, at one point, that's how it was going to be handled. And the second was for the food.
Correct. And
So
we have to
we're really only acting on the second.
Okay, as long as
second
Alice is clear on that.
Yes,
Certainly,
I understand that.
certainly there's a big difference between allowing outside people coming in, because then there's concerns like traffic and someone who's not staying there, where would they be able to use a restroom? Little things like that make the review of it a little bit different and more concerning to the abutters, I think, too. Like Sandy says, if you have a particular menu that's appealing to a lot of people and you start getting a lot of people coming in and out of the site, it would be certainly more than what the board would be considering by just food for people staying there overnight.
I mean, ideally, I would love to be able to add a thriving food service business to Lincolnville, but if that's not something that, we want me to explore right now, then we don't need to do that. There is a restroom available for guests that exists in the main part of the building. I built that out. It's actually built to, handicap specifications and everything. And I would love to be able to do that. And I have, thought about what the future impact of it is. And Frank and I have talked about, if this would be a change that would need to impact with the Department of Transportation. But my address technically is actually not on Route 1. So apparently that should not involve the Department of Transportation. I'm on Seaview Drive, which is a town road. So in terms of traffic flow and things like that, as you can see from the new site plan, there is abundant parking, and we're talking about a takeout window. It's not a sit-in destination, it's just simply food. But at this stage, if the simple thing is just to try and say, let's just start with food for guests only, I'm happy to start there. I'm just looking for your approval, and I'm trying to go through all the right channels so that, it can be possible and that it doesn't get shut down in any way. And maybe I've made this more complicated than needed to. Maybe I just should have started with the state and just gone for it. But I would love to know that I'm in compliance and can try to grow a business that can help, bring other people to Lincolnville and make it better for everyone.
I think what I'm hearing the applicant say is, let's go ahead and review her application for the takeout window, period. Without the outsiders coming in. That's all she's asking for. And if it
Alice.
changes later on, she'll come back to board for an amendment.
So can we
Well,
proceed?
an amendment to what, Frank?
An amendment to the site.
If she wants to expand it to public,
Yes, but
It's
that,
a different review process.
she's just saying for tonight, just allow her to put the window in for who's there, period. If she can't do anything else, because that's all the board is approving.
okay,
If she goes to do something else, my job is to enforce it, say you have to stop. And she would have to come back to the board for approval, whatever change she makes.
to that approval for the window, for the takeout food.
Whatever the change is, she tries to make other than what you approve, hopefully tonight.
Alice, you understand that on that $4,000 you spent for all the information that you've gathered and the plan you put into place for a approved commercial site, you can use anytime you want to come back to the board and ask for approval for a commercial site. And that makes life an awful lot easier all the way around.
Well, absolutely. And, if we had been able to initially improve the commercial site, I'm sure that we would be able to do this smoothly. But, I live here all year round. I'm always here. And so I'm
Okay,
happy to do it at any time. This is the season. So, I only have guests until the middle of October, and I would love to be able to offer them additional services and create an additional stream of taxable revenue during the time that I have available.
All right, so we'll review the application as the food being served is only for the occupants of the motel. The board still needs to decide how we're gonna do this tonight and what we're gonna expect for the next meeting, and whether the abutters need to be notified or not.
have we found this complete?
Have we? No. We haven't
Okay.
gone through any of the criteria yet. The ordinance says we do that after the abutters have been notified, which we haven't done that yet either.
The
If we're
butters are
doing Site
listed.
plan review.
The butters are listed. They haven't been notified?
They're listed. No, they haven't been notified.
Okay.
The attorney sent for our next site plan review, the standard checklist is just pulled out of our ordinance. It's pretty similar to what Frank gives us, only it doesn't have specific dates. It just has meeting numbers. And if you have that, you can see how each step of this comes together. She submitted the application. I think last meeting was really acted as a pre-application meeting because there were a lot of questions and she had a lot of material to go over with us. We're at a point now where we can schedule the meeting for the completeness review and notify the abutters, I believe, according to the ordinance. Is that the way the other board members see it and the code officer sees it?
No, I don't see it that way. This is not what's in the ordinance. This is a different scenario. And this is why the town attorney said to review, get the details on what's there now. And then she says to move on to section 11 and 12. She does not say go back to section 7. She does not say go backwards. She says go forward. Now, so I'm going to drop out of this conversation because if you could do it any other way than what Sally says, that's not the way the town attorney says to do it. So I'm out of the picture so far as what you decide to do going ahead with this.
Well, after the last meeting, she said we needed to go through site plan review, so I don't know.
I just read to you and you all have the same paragraph in your letter you got from Sally.
Taking into consideration the existence of the current use of the property that will continue, the planning board can then determine if the proposed new activity meets the site plan review provisions of the land use ordinance sections 11 and 12. And I assume 13. So do we just review those sections against the application? And if we do, what do we do that based on? What the information she supplied us?
I would think.
I would imagine. Are we not notifying abutters on this? we're going to approve this without notifying the abutters?
I don't think it's necessary, quite frankly, based on what the attorney's telling us.
If it's no additional traffic and I give people free coffee anyway, I can't see that it's going to impact anyone around me whatsoever. I have a very good relationship with my neighbors as it is, but if there's anything else that I can provide or any questions that you have about the material, I'm happy to answer them. Because especially if we're just talking about people who are already guests on premise with cars here, it's a very small change.
I think we need to focus on that portion of it. We're not expanding it out into the real world. It's internal to the motel. And I'm not certain just because she wants to serve coffee and donuts to her guests that we need to notify the world.
I already give them free coffee.
I'll be
If
over.
I could charge them for a latte, it would be better.
You know what else Sally says? Sally said option 3 is to just let her go ahead and do it.
That's not the final suggestion.
Option 1 is to review the initial existing site as is and then the amendment as proposed by the applicant. Option 2, review the takeout window and deck site plan application only. Option 3, not conduct site plan review at all and allow the applicant to proceed without the need
And if you're going to allow her
for
to,
site plan review.
if you're going to allow her to proceed, you have to give it to her documentation. Otherwise, the state will not approve it. So you have to give her something from the planning board that is an approval.
That's a good point.
What would that look like, Frank?
I didn't say how to do it. The right way to do it is go through 11 and 12, but the board said,
Then why don't we do that?
Well, just a minute point here. We can't go through 11 and 12 unless we have everything we need to do that review. That's what finding a complete is all about.
so how are you going to satisfy the applicant then?
We have her application and we have everything she submitted and we have the knowledge that she has an existing commercial site that's not been approved. If we have all the information and we verify that, then we review under 11 and 12 and we approve or disapprove.
Well, why don't you do that?
Okay? You were saying we didn't have to go back and check for the completeness, and we do.
No, Jay, I said you didn't have to go back to 7, but look, you move it
What's
the way you
7?
wanted to do it.
Now, how does the board wish to proceed with this?
Why not make an attempt to go through 11 and 12 and see where we get?
Everyone has copies of her application.
Yep.
Yep.
Frank, do you have your ordinance with you too?
Yes.
Yes. All right, what page are we on with 11?
For 11,
Six-
11 is going to start on page
60.
58.
All right. Standards and criteria.
Correct.
All right, I'll start to read through this. Approval standards and criteria. The following criteria for the site plan review shall be used by the planning board in reviewing applications for site plan review and shall serve as minimum requirements in addition to the requirements of section 12 and section 13 for the approval of the application. The application shall be approved unless the planning board determines that the applicant has failed to meet one or more of these standards or one or more of the standards set forth in sections 12 and section 13. In all instances, the burden of proof shall be on the applicant, who must produce evidence sufficient to warrant a finding that all applicable criteria have been met. 11.1. We'll vote on these by number. The plan for the development must reflect the natural capabilities of the site to support development. Buildings, lots, and support facilities must be clustered in those portions of the site that have the most suitable conditions for development. Environmentally sensitive areas, including but not limited to wetlands, steep slopes, floodplain, plains, significant wildlife habitats, fisheries, scenic areas, habitat for rare and endangered plants and animals, unique natural communities and natural areas, and sand and gravel aquifers must be maintained and preserved to the maximum extent. Natural drainage areas must also be preserved to the maximum extent. The development must include appropriate measures for protecting these resources, including but not limited to modification of the proposed design of the site, timing of construction, and limiting the extent of excavation.
Taking into consideration that the site is an existing motel and a functioning existing motel, I would say that the utilization of the site has already been noted, and there have been no, as far as I know, anything against that in terms of whatever's mentioned here is environmentally sensitive areas. So I would say it meets that standard.
It's been moved that the utilization of the site 11.1A and B have not changed environmentally.
I would second that. I would
Second that, Sandy?
Yep.
It's been moved and seconded. Roll call vote. Sandy, how do you vote?
Yes.
Yes. Jay?
Yes,
Yes. 11.1 is passed. 11.2, traffic access and parking. The following criteria shall be used by the planning board in reviewing applications for site plan review. In a development that is on any roadway covered by 23 MRSA subsection 704, as may be amended, the provisions of the statute apply, and in addition to the provisions below, apply if more restrictive than the statute. A, vehicular access to the site must be on roads which have adequate capacity to accommodate the additional traffic generated by the development. B, vehicular access to and from the development must be safe and convenient. B1, any driveway or proposed street must be designed as to not provide and maintain the minimum site distance according to the Maine Department of Transportation standards and to the maximum extent possible. B2, points of access and egress must be located to avoid hazardous conflict with existing turning movements and traffic flows. B3, the grade of any proposed drive or street must not be greater than plus or minus 3% minimum or 2 car lengths or 40 feet from the intersection. These road standards go on and on for
yeah, I agree with you,
4,
Mike.
5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 design standards for proposed roadways.
I would be comfortable with, if any member of the board has any problem with any of the provisions in this section, to express their concerns about that. If not, I'd be very comfortable with saying, because it's an existing motel and taking into consideration the site that this application is looking to utilize, that we'd have reviewed and accept these standards.
I would second that.
It's been moved and seconded that there are no, that it meets the standards because there are no proposed driveways in addition to what's already there now.
I think that would include parking also,
And parking, yes. Okay, and parking.
and pedestrian access. That's not going to change either.
Which would take us into through page 61, sections 11.2 up to 11.3. So all of 11.2 would be approved under that. Take a straw vote on that? Or take a roll call vote on that. Sandy?
Yeah.
Yes?
Yep.
Jay?
Yes,
Yes. Mike Cummins, yes. Approved. Stormwater management. Adequate provisions must be made for the collection and disposal of all stormwater that runs off proposed streets, parking areas, roofs, other surfaces through a stormwater drainage system and maintenance plan, which must not have adverse impacts on abutting downstream properties. Where appropriate, stormwater may be collected to provide for on-site fire protection. Before I go through this, is there any increase in impervious area to the site? Are we changing the drainage pattern at all with this?
None whatsoever.
No.
I think a 6 by 8 foot deck is not gonna, it would be an impervious area, but it's not gonna affect the drainage at all.
Okay.
It was also
11.3 stormwater
formerly in the
management
site of
items.
a 12
Pardon?
by 12 deck, so.
12 by
it-
12 deck.
Previously, when I purchased the property, there was a larger deck there than what this proposal includes. So it's something that was previously in existence, so there is no impact.
So we could consider it grandfathered almost.
Yes,
Yeah, the application says 8 by 6, but you're gonna make it 12 by 12?
no, there was previously a 12 by 12 deck, and I'm talking about adding an 8 by 6 deck. When I bought the property in 2015, the 12 by 12 deck was there. I removed it, and now I'm rebuilding it
Oh,
in
to
a
8 by-
smaller size.
To 8 by 6,
Yes.
okay.
Board members comfortable with the stormwater management and erosion control sections?
Yes, no change in those things because of the existing use of the property and the application for installation of a smaller deck than previously existed. I'd say it meets the standard.
I would second that.
It's been moved and seconded that the applicant meets the standards of erosion control 11.4 and stormwater management 11.3. Roll call vote, Sandy?
Yep.
Jay?
Yes,
Me, Mike Cummins, approved. Water supply provisions 11.5, the proposed development shall be served by an adequate supply of water for domestic and for fire protection purposes. The means of providing the service may be public, private, or a combination of the two. Termination of adequate supply for automatic fire protection sprinkler systems shall be governed by the rules and regulations of the Office of the State Fire Marshal, applicable National Fire Protection Association standards, particularly NFPA 1231 standard on water supplies for suburban and rural firefighting. Is there
Um,
any
yeah, the
additional?
application calls for using the existing water supply, and the fire department uses pumper trucks to reply. So I would say that it meets the standards of water supply 11.5.
I would second that.
It's been moved and seconded that the applicant meets the provisions of 11.5 water supply. Roll call vote, Sandy?
Yep.
Jay?
Yes,
Mike Cummins, yes. Carried. 11.6, sewage wastewater disposal. Development shall provide a method of disposing of sewage wastewater that is in compliance with the state plumbing code. If provisions are proposed for on-site waste disposal, all such systems must conform to the subsurface sewage wastewater disposal rules as stated in the current land use ordinance. You had submitted the previous designs of the septic systems there with your application?
Yes.
Yes.
no, they're in
Yeah.
here.
And you've gone
I
over all this, Frank. She's good with the septic systems, no increase
Correct.
required.
I built the septic system in 2016 in order to accommodate a 35-seat restaurant, so it is well in
It should
excess.
be big enough.
of No thing, yeah.
Board members comfortable with the applicant meeting the provisions of 11.6 sewage wastewater disposal?
Yes.
Copies of the septic design.
Second,
It's been moved and seconded. Sandy?
Yep.
Your vote, Jay?
yes,
Mike Cummins, carried. Utilities, development shall be provided with electrical, telephone, telecommunication service adequate to meet the anticipated use of the project. All service of the site and distribution between buildings shall be underground or have as little visual impact as possible. Utility structures shall be screened from view. All the telecommunication and electrical wiring is all in place. Nothing's changing with that. It's all grandfathered.
Nothing's changing. No. Still there, visible, but no
Someone
change.
move that we that the applicant meets 11.7 utility standard.
So move.
Other than the fact that I have a real problem, we keep using this word grandfathered. Given consideration of the existing site, I would agree that yes, the utilities meet the standard.
Okay, Jay. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
A roll call.
I'm sorry. Sandy?
Yes.
Jay?
Yes.
Mike Cummins. Unanimous. 11.8, natural features. The landscape must be preserved in its natural state insofar as practical by minimizing tree removal, disturbance, and compaction of soil, and by retaining existing vegetation insofar as practical during construction. Extensive grading and filling must be avoided as far as possible. Doesn't appear that there's any.
I would move that 11.8 and 11.9 meet requirements.
Natural features and groundwater protection.
Yep.
It's been moved that 11.8 and 11.9, the applicant meets the standards.
I would second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Sandy, how do you vote?
Yes.
Jay?
Yes.
Mike Cummins? Yes. Water quality protection. Aspects of the project must be designed so that no person shall locate, store, discharge, or permit the discharge of any treated, untreated, or inadequately treated liquid, gaseous, solid materials of such
Excuse me.
nature that are
Excuse me,
such
Mike.
nature, quantity, obnoxiousness, toxicity, or temperature that may run off, seep, percolate, or wash into the surface of groundwater so as to contaminate, pollute, or harm such waters or cause nuisances, such as objectionable shore deposits, floating submerged debris, oil, scum, color, odor, taste, unsightliness, or be harmful to human, animal, plant, or aquatic life. Adequate storage facilities for fuel and chemicals.
Mike, I believe Sandy said that 11.8 and 11.9 meets, and you've done.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right.
So you don't
Yes.
need to read all that. You're
Okay.
back, now you're going to 11.10.
Thank you.
Okay.
11.10.
I don't want to write the same thing twice.
No, I don't want to read any more than I have to read. Hazardous,
Thank you.
special, and radioactive materials, 11.10.
I don't believe anything in the application showed any thing having to do with hazardous materials or its handling. It's an open operating site, taking into consideration that it exists in the application for the food service. I would say 11.10 has been met.
I would second that.
Moved and seconded that the standards of 11.10 are met. Sandy, how do you vote?
Yes.
Jay?
Yes.
Mike Cummins? 11.10 is carried. 11.11 shoreline relationship. The development must not adversely affect the water quality or shoreline of any adjacent water body.
Not applicable.
I would agree.
It's all right. 11.11 shoreline relationship. It's been moved and seconded then?
That it's not applicable.
Not applicable. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
11. None of that's in the shoreline zone. We're well outside the shoreline zone there, Frank.
Way outside.
The solid waste management. Proposed development must provide for adequate disposal of solid wastes. You have a dumpster pad up in there, Alice?
Okay.
You
I
have a
have
carting
weekly tra-
service?
Yep. Wayne Hill once a week.
11.12 solid waste management. She has carting service, remove trash from up there. Someone move that she's met the.
I would move that she meets requirements.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Sandy, how do you vote?
Yes. Yep.
Jay? Mike Cummins. 11.13 historic and archaeological resources.
Dug up any Indian artifacts lately?
Not yet.
No,
My
not yet.
dog does a lot of digging, but he hasn't found anything exciting.
I would move that that meets the requirements.
Second,
Been moved and seconded. Sandy, how do you vote?
Yes,
Jay?
yes,
Mike Cummins? Floodplain management?
not in the floodplain.
Not in the floodplain, not applicable. General fire protection?
I would say it's an existing site which meets all of the codes. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been operating for as long as it's been operating. Unless didn't I hear that the kitchen already exists, Alice?
I built the kitchen. It has an Ansel system for fire suppression over the stove, which is inspected regularly by Fire Safe Maine.
Okay, so that already exists on the site. So I would say that we meet those requirements under that standard.
second that.
Moved and seconded. Sandy, how do you vote?
Yes,
Jay?
Yes,
Mike Cummins? Let's see, fire protection. Good neighbor standards, section 12. Following good neighbor standards shall be used by the planning board in reviewing the application for site plan review and shall serve as minimum requirements in addition to the requirements of section 11 and section 13 for approval of the application. The application shall be approved unless the planning board determines the applicants fail to meet one or more of these standards or one or more of the standards set forth in section 11 and section 13. In all instances, the burden of proof shall be on the applicant, who must produce evidence sufficient to warrant a finding that all applicable criteria have been met. 12.1, exterior lighting. Is there any change to the exterior lighting?
No change. Also, it's a daytime operation, so there should be no impact whatsoever. But
Okay.
the existing lighting is there.
so again, considering the existing site and its function with no addition by this application, I would say that standard's been met.
I would second that.
Section 12.1, A, B, C, and D. It's been moved that requirements been met. Sandy, how do you vote?
Yes,
Jay?
Yes,
Mike Cummins, yes. Buffering, the development shall provide for buffering of adjacent uses.
I don't think this application requires buffering. It's a site that exists, has been operating, and taking that into consideration, what the application is asking for. I don't believe that a buffering standard, because it doesn't exist, needs to be added. So I would say it meets that standard.
second that.
Been moved and seconded. How do you vote, Sandy?
Yes,
Jay?
Yes,
Mike Cummins? Noise, the development must control noise levels such that it will not create a nuisance for neighboring properties. Is there any increase in noise generated by this takeout?
Lincoln coffee cups. Sorry.
Lip smacking. I don't think so.
Someone move that there's no
yeah, and,
noise nuisance created by
considering the
that.
current, considering the current use of the property and the addition of any application, that is really, it meets that standard for the application.
I would excuse me, second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Sandy, how do you vote? Jay?
Yes,
Mike? Section 13, design standards.
Mike, I'm going to say that because it's taking into consideration the existing site the way it exists right now, with the application not planning to add any landscaping, signage, roadside parking lot buffers, building orientation, building scale, parking lot placement, view ridgeline protection, view hillside development, shoreland development. I consider all of that really not applicable to this application.
So that's all up to 13.5.
I would say at least.
Up to 13, well, 13.6 is view protection.
Yep.
13.7 is ridgeline protection, hillside development, shoreland development. That takes us to the end of 13. You're going to blanket 13?
I would move that we blanket those.
That may be why Sally didn't mention 13 in her letter, because she thought it also really didn't apply. but we've covered it, so it's covered in the record.
All right, so we're not approving it then? No one's moving? the applicant-
I would say that we move to approve based on the fact that it's an existing site. We're taking that into consideration for this application, and this application doesn't change anything in 13,
I would second that.
or affect anything in 13, I should say.
It's been moved and seconded that the new applicant, the application doesn't change anything that's existing in section 13. Although, Sandy, how do you vote?
Yes,
Jay?
Yes.
Mike? And they were the 2 or 3 sections we were using to,
At this point, I have the large plat plans at my office, so the planning board can now sign off on that submission for this amendment.
When you say amendment, Frank,
You've just reviewed the amendment as it affects the general review standards. So now you can sign off on the plat plan.
right, we're signing off on the application for the creation of a food service from an existing kitchen through a window to a constructed porch on a non-approved but already in existence commercial site.
I agree with
Yeah.
you, Jay.
That's
Yes.
what we're approving.
Yes.
Okay.
right,
Yep. I would make a motion to that effect.
Second that.
Is that
okay?
second,
Nancy, is that okay? Did you get that motion, Nancy?
That was a lot, Jay. Would you mind kind of repeating that?
Okay. I move that because the application for a food service from an existing kitchen through an existing window onto a soon-to-be constructed deck on a site which the board has taken into consideration, which already exists as a motel, that the application be approved.
I seconded that.
it's been moved and seconded that the application be approved for the, as just stated, the food service to be used at the existing motel site. Sandy, how do you vote?
Yes,
Jay?
Yes.
I'm gonna vote, I'm gonna disapprove my vote. So it carries 2 to 1.
Well, you've already approved all general review standards, so by default, you've approved the amendment.
What's that?
You've already gone through the 22 general review standards and approved them unanimously. So you've already automatically approved the amendment.
What's the amendment? I don't understand amendment.
The takeout window.
That's the application.
just did that.
You just went through that application, right?
Yes,
You went through the 22 standards, right?
yes,
And each one of the items went through one at a time and you all voted on it, right?
yes,
Therefore, you've approved it.
yes. What's the amendment?
The application is the amendment. This
The
is
application
amendment.
is the amendment to what?
Can we take this off? Jay?
No,
What do you,
you're
What did you
voting
just-
you're voting to approve, we're not amending anything, we're voting to approve the new site, the new,
Right. There's nothing
all
to amend because there's no approved commercial site.
okay, call it whatever you like. You've just approved whatever is before the board.
Yes,
Wonderful.
Wonderful.
And we do the next.
We have an echo.
now, if you do want to open that up to the public, remember that would be a new application, Alice.
Yes, certainly. And if I ever want my site plan approved, that would be a new application as
Okay.
well. And I'm not quite sure what additionally I need to do to have that be recognized, but I will appreciate the approval in hand and file with the state for an eating license for my motel guests only.
Alice, good
Congratulations.
luck with that.
and Alice, all that information and data that you have that you were going to apply for a commercial site approval on, keep
Yes.
that, and that'll be good for applying for a commercial site for your entire motel if you ever want to do that.
Right. I thought I tried to do that a month ago.
You did.
Well, we could have done that tonight if that's what you'd wanted, but that's not what we got an application for.
No, I applied for that a month ago, and in the effort to expedite this process so that I can gain some additional revenue this season, we decided to focus on the change at hand.
Right.
But
Good.
I would be happy to do it at a later date. I hope I don't have to pay for it again.
Look forward to it.
You shouldn't. That's the reason. You've already paid for the permit. That should be good. You can talk to
I
Frank
hope
about that.
so.
But you paid all that money to Gartley and Dorsey. You've paid for the right to apply. That should still be good. That shouldn't have to be reapplied for.
I hope so. I felt like the point of contention is if we need to let the abutters know about what is in existence already. And if that's the course of action we need to take to do that, then we can look at it in the fall when my schedule is much more wide open, and we can take the 60 days or whatever to do that and move ahead, because I think it would be the greater interest of the business in the future just to have it on file so that maybe it's easier to do any kind of changes.
Look forward
I
to
think
seeing
we
you
have
again.
information together. It'd be nice. Is there
All right.
anything else you need from me?
Anything else for her at this point?
No,
He's been approved.
Okay.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda. Pre-application meeting for, we have a letter to Frank Terrio from Atlantic Environmental. David, if you're there, can you connect us with the next applicant? And
I
if,
can.
when he comes on, Frank, if you would, you give us a quick rundown on this one?
Mike, before you do that, there are a number of people that I believe are part of this application, so I'm going to move several people over. Let's see, here comes Tim. Lisa Vickers.
Tim Forrester is the owner, is that correct?
He's the owner of Atlantic Environmental, I believe.
there's owner on the
There's
cover
Tim.
letter.
Hi, good evening.
Is Joe Martin part of the group? Does
Yes.
anyone know? Yes,
Yes.
thank you. How about Sarah Griffith? No, okay. I think
Joe
that's it, Mike.
Martin. Is Joe Martin the attorney?
Joe's the engineer.
Okay, okay.
Joe is muted.
So we have Tim Forrester, Lisa Vickers, Kevin Corbett, and Joe Martin. Were there any others from your group, Tim?
No, that is all.
That was it, okay.
Yep.
And Frank, did you want to go through this real quick with us?
Yeah, basically, I think we should go through what is expected of the applicant tonight. And this is in reference to a 13,512 solar panel project that's going to be located on the Searsmont Road. And as a pre-application, what the board will be looking for, besides an explanation of the project from the applicant, we need to have 4 things in mind. You need to come up with the application review date for when the actual plan will be reviewed for completion on submissions. You need to decide if you want to hold an on-site inspection. And you also need to decide if studies are required for the town requesting it, and if consultants are required. So at this point, I would suggest you have the applicant explain the project and go from there. And then what you'll need to do if you are if there's no problems with the pre-app meeting to you, then I would suggest you're going to be setting a date for the next meeting of July the 29th. And I'll go over it with you if you want the details as to why you would go out that far. Okay?
All right,
Frank.
thank you.
Can we assume this is a major project classified?
No, it's not. Well,
not.
see, the problem is that the DEP has stated that these panels are not pervious because of the design of the angle. So therefore, the only area that you're going to document as impervious is going to be the roads that travel around them. You can go into detail as to what the size of the transformer pads may be. So that's the determination you would make is on the roads. So I guess we're going to ask them to come back with their take as to how many impervious square feet we have with the roads.
So you're classifying this as a minor project?
Until we hear otherwise, that the applicant says that it's larger based on just the roads that are available.
Okay.
I guess at this point, Tim, we'll hand it over to you to explain the project to us.
Okay, great. Well, thank you all very much. And Tim Forrester with Atlantic Environmental, as well as Lisa Vickers, who works with me. Kevin Corbett is from Sunrays, and he's the solar development company. And then Joe Martin is a professional engineer with Sightlines, who's handling all our stormwater, site design, and all other calculations related to that. So this particular site, it's a 4 megawatt proposed project. We included in our application just some general development descriptions. This does require a stormwater permit by rule from the main DEP, which is a abbreviated permit process, basically saying, you know, these are the standards that we comply to, and here's our information. And it also applies, will be approved by the Army Corps of Engineers. We do have a small wetland crossing in the beginning of the parcel. So this started out, I'm a wetland scientist, and I went out to the site and delineated wetlands in the area. There is one forested wetland on the back of the property, and then a small forested drainage that cuts across the beginning of the field. And that little wetland swale is our only impact. The larger forested wetland out back, we don't touch. There's a schematic included from Soul Rebel, which is the proposed layout. So we collect all the information, send it to them, and then they in turn design how the panels are positioned and how we lay it out within the parcel. This is a leased piece. So I have Kevin, it's a 30-year lease.
It's a 20-year lease with 3 5-year extensions, so up to 35 years.
Okay. The site plan shows that around the outside of the area, it's all fenced in. There's a gate to come in through on the access way. And then there are a couple of laydown yards which are designed with battery storage. The concept being that, you know, on a nice sunny day, you're producing lots of electricity, but potentially not needing it, or the storage allows for it essentially an even distribution of electricity back into the grid. There is additional clearing associated with the project that is outside of the fence area. And in some spots that comes up a little close to the property line, actually just in one spot on the east side. The rest of it is well within the parent parcel of 80 acres. So this is a 20-acre lease development. The general approach to the project is to come in and establish a construction access way, which will be the main road of access, and then to cut the trees, stump and grub, install a fence, and then start to lay out the rest of the structure. This is on a racked system. So they're essentially a screw auger that goes down into the ground, and there's an aluminum rack system, a metal rack system that attaches to that. And then you add your panels. There are 20 or 24 panels per rack. And those are set in a fixed location. What else? That is sort of the short and sweet of the project. Kevin, if you have anything to add, maybe a little bit about Sunrays, now's the time.
Yeah, I think that pretty much covers the project. Thanks, Tim. Just a little bit about Sunrays, our company. I'm actually vice president of construction, but I do development work too. So this is one of my projects that we signed a lease with the Pendleton Trust on Searsmont Road, and so we've been working with them on this project. And we're a local company. We're from we have people basically in Maine, New Hampshire, and Massachusetts. We've been doing a lot of development up in Maine over the past year. So we have projects that are pretty local to Lincolnville and Belfast, China, Searsport, and towns like that. So we have projects that are a little bit further along than this one, but this is a good project. It has a lot of good characteristics that the state is looking for as part of the new incentive program. It's right next to the substation, actually, so it's obviously close to three-phase power, has minimal impact to natural resources, and it's not an impact to really any farmland or open space like that. So it's a good project. It's one that we're excited about to work through the town and get permits through the town. And basically Sunrays, mainly focuses on commercial projects like this in this size up to basically 20 acres. We have projects in operation in Massachusetts, New Hampshire, California are our primary markets, but we have a lot developed in Maine. And we're a little unique, I think, from some other developers, just because we do develop projects, but we also construct them, we own them, and we operate them for the life of the system. So we're here for the long run. And we hope to get some good feedback from you guys on what you're looking for. And so we can just get the application complete, get it in, and go through the process. So that's about
Jim,
it.
I have a question.
Yes.
This is Frank Terrio. One of the questions that's coming around is, does the community have any direct access to the output of these panels, or does it go to major carrier CMP? In other words, this is a commercial function, so why is it commercial? Where is the payment coming for the use of the energy, or who's paying for that?
Yeah.
In other words, the question is, can the town of Lincolnville access the panel output? That's the questions that are coming up.
Sure, that's a good one for Kevin, I think, to address.
Yeah, so the program is set up to basically benefit off-takers. So it's can be a combination of residential, small business, large commercial off-takers, municipalities, and things like that. So essentially, this project will have benefit of all of the above. Most likely, it's still to be determined on what sort of program it goes into, or who the offtake goes to. But typically what we do is as we get further along, and pretty much like a month prior to construction starting on a project or so, sometime around there, we'll have discussions with the town and residents in town on basically it being a benefit to them, and it's essentially a reduction in their electricity rate.
If I could just make a quick point here, I understand that the community may have questions about this, and I'm sure there's going to be public hearings on it, but the planning board's focus is on the site.
Right.
What we're going to be looking at is the site that you're applying to construct or develop. So we'll be looking at the ground that all this is going to go on. What leaves the site in terms of electricity or whatever is not really something we're going to be determining. Or having
I
any.
think as we get going with the review process, we're going to be getting a lot of questions from townspeople. You know, hopefully they can benefit from this. And of course, now is the town has the opportunity, the town members have an opportunity to ask questions during the public hearing portion of the approval process. So if there is anyone watching right now that has specific questions, you will have your time to ask the applicant those questions. It'll probably be a meeting or two from now, so at least 2 meetings from now. So if you could be patient during the review process, I'm sure the applicant will answer any question you may have regarding the use of the site and how this electricity is going to be sold and distributed, and what benefit it could have to the school or residents or businesses in town. Again, if you could be patient and wait for the public hearing, that would be great. Any other board member have any questions for the
Yeah, Mike, in their letter to Frank, concerning a commercial site plan permit application on behalf of the Searsmont Road Lincolnville Solar LLC. They've made a request, given that the proposed project is an unmanned operation, the applicant requests the planning board waive the requirement for a traffic impact analysis. We have the authority to do that. We should consider that. And I've listed about 4 or 5 other things that I think that the board should consider waiving also, because it's really not pertinent to this application. In addition to 10.5 point E, which is what they requested a waiver on.
I see the request to waive the traffic impact analysis. What were the other ones you
Yeah, I
had?
would request that we take a look at 10.5 C, 10.5 F, 10.5 H, 10.5 I, and 10.5 J.
The groundwater analysis? You said 10.5 C?
Yes,
And what were the other ones again, Jay? I'm sorry.
E is the one they're requesting. That's the traffic.
Is traffic, okay.
F,
F, pedestrian ways, lots, easement, open spaces, other areas to be reserved, dedicated to public use. Okay.
H,
H. Be no dedication of highways, easements, anything like that. That, well, now, is this a major or minor project?
Frank says minor.
Minor, because these are all additional information for major projects.
What we need to do is have them come back with the numbers, for square footage on the roads, as well as the transformer pads, anything that occupies space.
Yeah, I listed those because I'm kind of surprised that we're declaring it a minor project, because it is major, but they requested the traffic analysis waiver, so
Okay.
I guess we can just do that automatically, because we're not even classifying it because that information is not required.
Oh,
Tim,
okay.
Could we get that information, Tim?
Yeah, absolutely. Frank, what is the cutoff between major and minor in terms of impervious area?
5,000 square feet.
And we do have those numbers. This is Lisa Vickers with Atlantic Environmental. So Joe Martin has been working, we've received preliminary site plans. And Joe, you can step in here, but I believe that we are at 0.96 or 42,000 square feet of impervious area. That includes the roads and equipment pads. And there's also, the DEP does consider the ground screws as impervious. So we've kind of, to be consistent, we've considered those as well. They're fairly minor number, but that is included.
So your square footage number is 43,000, you said?
Just 42,000, yeah.
Okay, so in that case, it definitely would be a major project.
Okay, So now we're to a major project, correct?
Correct.
Then my request for waiver of those items would
That's,
then stand.
all right, so this is going to be considered a major project then.
Correct.
All right. I believe we review and go over the waivers now at the pre-app meeting, isn't that correct, Jay? That's why I understand it.
Yes.
Okay. Were there any other waivers to be considered or requested before we?
Do we have the full list that I requested?
I know which ones they are. I can,
Okay. I did not include G in that list because it's location, name, and present widths of existing public and private streets, rights of way, and the adjacent proposed development. I don't know about right of way having to do with the property, so we should look at that. But I don't see the other items there as related to the application.
no, is there? How is this, are we tying into the CMP right of way on? Where will the actual energy leave the site? Well, is it gonna come down to the road or is it gonna go?
Yeah, it's gonna go down to the road and tie into the existing three-phase power at the street.
It'll come down to the road, so it's not gonna have anything to do with the CMP right of way then?
Nope.
No, okay, all right, so there's no easement over other portions of the Pendleton Trust property, okay,
Correct. Nope.
okay.
The only other items that I was curious about was, I think you understand that probably the review of this is going to come down to the water runoff, storm water management, whatever you want to call it. This is in the watershed of Norton's Pond. So phosphorus export, water drainage, erosion, all that kind of stuff is going to come into play. As I look at the plan, you have 11 feet between each row of panels. I assume you're planning the ground that these panels are all going to be sitting on. So that's 88 acres of area that's been cleared and then has impervious surface on it. All that water is going to go somewhere. So we're going to have to look at that. But I'm sure you know that. I noticed that the road entrance, I'm not concerned about the road entrance when the area is up and functioning. I am a little concerned about the road conditions and the entrance to it when you're doing the clearing and the removal of everything that's on that site and then the construction material going in and out. So we'll probably have to take a look at that also, and you'll just tell us, how that's going to be controlled. It doesn't look to me like you're going to need buffering from the road because it's already protected from existing forest that you're going to leave in place. I don't think this thing's going to be visible even from the road, it looks like. But one area I would be interested in is you said any area disturbed within the limits of the solar array footprint are to be seeded with a specified regionally appropriate native conservation seed mix unless specified otherwise as a plan. How do you plan on maintaining that? I think will be one of the questions that will be asked also.
Yeah, so the area, the area underneath the panels, remains vegetated the whole time. We're allowed to mow it as often as twice a year.
You know what the state of North Carolina does? They put herds of goats out there.
Sheep, yeah.
Sheep.
Yeah. And they've got 500 and 600 acre solar panel parks.
Right.
So that's a lot of goats, but it keeps the grass down.
They eat the kudzu also.
Well, would you want to handle these waivers right now, Jay? Would you like to move that we waive these following items?
Then if we waive them now, they don't have to put them into their plan when they submit it for submission under submission requirements.
Right.
Right. And I'm proposing it. If you or Sandy have any, disagreements, then I'm fine with that.
Okay, so you move at 10.5, sections C, E, F, G, and H. Those requirements be
No, not G.
not G. I thought you said you were considering G, not G. Okay.
Not G. Everything except G. H, I, and J.
C, E, F, H,
Yeah, C, E, F, H, I, J.
CEF-HIJ. CEF-HIJ. All right, we have a motion then that the applicant be relieved from requirements 10.5 CEF-HIJ. And I have someone second that, Sandy?
I would like to refresh my memory as to what those are. I don't have the book in front of me at the moment.
It's under additional information for major projects. One C is groundwater analysis. E is traffic impact analysis. F is location of pedestrian ways, lots, easements, open spaces, areas to be dedicated, public use, etc. H is written offers of dedication or conveyance to the municipality, like if we were to have a road or something. I, or open space. I, development is condominium or clustered development, which it's not. J is creation of a homeowners association or condominium documents.
Then I would second it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded then that we relieve the applicant of 10.5 CEF-HIJ. How do you vote on that, Sandy?
Yes,
Jay?
Yes,
I approve as well. Another item we need to consider are, do any of the board members feel that we're going to need any technical help on any of the items in our review from professionals, from an engineer, environmental person, or anything like that? The ordinance does provide we can request fees for something like that if need be. Is there anything that comes out, that stands out that you feel like we would need a professional's advice on, as far as maybe drainage or environmental impact? Or
I think that would come about really only if the board had questions on the information that was submitted to us as evidence of for their application, to back up their application. If we question their technical input and expertise, then we reserve the right to get somebody that can make it clearer to us or resolve any conflict for us. If they present everything that they have and knowledge that they have of what's going on, I have no problem with using their technical knowledge.
okay, good. I just want to let the applicant know that. I'm sure he's read through the ordinance. It's always a possibility. Are there any other questions for the applicant? We need to set up schedule him for the next meeting to go over the application for completeness.
The other thing we have to do now is, do we want to do a site walk?
We can. Do we want to do it now, or do we? I think the applicant requested that we do it sooner than later. Now, was there any reason for that, Tim?
Just to, I think, Lisa, you stated that in there to sooner than later, but I believe it was just so that we could stay on track and get into the meeting agendas as quickly as possible.
Okay.
Can you tell us, if we walked out there and got out of our cars and walked off the road, what we'd be looking at?
Yep, you would see an existing field, and then you'd see forested upland.
Is there any reason to go see that?
Well,
Is there
I think,
anything
what if
staked
you-
out there yet that,
Right. Staked
clearing
out.
limits or anything like that?
No, nothing is staked out.
Oh, okay.
there is no parking at this point. Correct?
Yeah, you could park at the at the house of the homeowners. Walk out through there.
Oh, okay.
He has there's a couple existing woods trails that go out there, but it's basically forested land that was harvested for timber in the past, and then existing field area.
Well, would you like to schedule the site walk after the application submitted?
Or do we want to do a site walk?
We could do it 2 weeks after. I'd like to see it, only because I like to see how high it is and what we,
Okay.
But again, it's a meeting that we'd have to give notice of. But I think after that first application meeting.
I can go either way on that.
Yeah, whatever's best for them.
Are there any other questions for the applicant? You want to schedule that meeting for a month from now then? And then the site walk 2 weeks after that? You'll be ready,
Sure.
you'll be
Yeah.
ready for that, okay.
Yeah, I get it. You guys meet twice a month, don't you? Or no?
We try.
You try?
We try, I mean, would you be able to have everything in by the deadline for the next meeting?
When would that be?
4th of,
Get out of here.
8th of July?
Now my dog's barking.
Who-
The way I keep my door closed.
The next planning board meeting, Frank, the 8th of,
Yeah, but you would not have time to get the things you need to have done by the 8th, for example. You need to have, by 7:15, you need the ad in the paper just to make the 7/29 date.
yeah,
You don't have the time to, you have to jump over one meeting in order to notify the abutters, ads in the paper. So you.
Does
can't make
the site walk need public notice as well?
That has to be a public notice, right?
Okay.
yes, yeah. Well, we'll schedule it for that second meeting in July then, right, Frank?
July 29th.
July
Yeah.
29th.
Yep. Very good.
We'll get you a butter notification letter. Is that Lisa be handling that information?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
correct.
I'll contact you
Great.
either tomorrow or sometime in the near future.
Sounds good.
You'll be giving us a proposed signed lease for just to show interest in the land for okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's all I have, unless any of the other board members have anything. Anything else to consider, Frank, or?
No, you've covered it all. You've got the main thing you're going to do is the on-site review, and you're looking at the possibility of consultant after you review what they provide for their people, from their people.
There is one other topic. We can bring it up now, or we can bring it up later if you want. If you happen to look at that plan that we presented, you can see there's the forested wetland in the sort of northeast corner. And then set into the solar array is a 250-foot setback. And that is off of your land use map. There's a section there of resource conservation. So it appears that this town map from, which I think it was 1973. Well, it was re-signed in 2010, but some of the base data was based on
Talking about this one,
1973.
right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. So there's a little green area in there that's zoned as resource conservation, which has 250 feet, but then structure setbacks of 150.
Right.
And that sets into the solar array at the moment. That's something that we wanted to talk about with you guys and see how you look at that and whether or not we can be within the 250, but not within the 150 mark. There's a couple other considerations here too that, this is, Lisa, can you chime in on that too? On the other aspect of it.
Oh, like for the resource conservation definition or just?
And
this?
yeah, in that it's an electrical facility. And,
Oh, right. So just looking at your land use ordinance, and as we were going through this with that bit that is in the resource conservation, I guess first, when we were reviewing the definition, for areas. We noticed that map was just for illustrative purposes only, and it should be based off of what you find in the field. And, you know, the definition for resource conservation is areas within 250 feet of the upland edge of wetlands associated with great ponds and rivers. And then it gives specific numbers. According to that land use map, this is number 155. And then it goes on to say, and rated moderate value by the Maine Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife. So I guess our question was, this isn't a wetland that's associated with a great pond or a river. It's a forested wetland. And we did submit the information for this project to IF&W, and we received a letter stating that they have there's no habitat issues, excuse me, on site. So I guess, do we need to include this because we've kind of verified in the field that this isn't associated with a great pond or river? And if our setback is it 150, or can we even put this in that area?
Well, you're going to be limited to what is the most restrictive. And the most restrictive would be that in the resource conservation, the setback has to be 150 feet.
Okay. But you can put a structure, a commercial structure in there.
Let me hold on while I get to the table and check it out for you.
Okay,
With it outside the 150 foot mark, you mean?
Right.
correct. Just within the zone itself. Because we were also looking at, you know, does this classify as an essential service? Because it is a construction of a electrical facility essentially, which I did note was allowed. But there was no reasonable alternative.
Tim, did your field survey verify this resource conservation area?
So what I delineated it as a forested wetland. And then what it shows on the map, if there is resource conservation associated with it, it's only based on what's on the map. But sort of my question with that was, and I can't quite share the screen, but from IF&W, you know, this is what IF&W produced for us, and it doesn't show it as wading bird or waterfowl habitat. And that's what your, so it's kind
table of land use, oh, excuse me. A table of land uses says that in the resource conservation, commercial is not allowed.
Okay, that's
Which
what
means the 250 foot setback.
would you
Frank?
consider this an essential service? Because I looked at that definition, it's construction, alteration, maintenance of gas, electrical, or communication facilities. I didn't know if you would classify this as an electrical facility.
It could be. I'd be interested to see what the town attorney would say about that, though. It would make sense.
Mhm. That was allowed under the land use.
Could an argument be made here that an engineer verified field survey has found that this not updated, not recent map is now non-existent in terms of this particular conservation area? In other words, is the wetland no longer there? I've been using this map. I've been on the board 20 years now, and I've been using this map since day one. So I seriously doubt it's been updated.
No, it's all right, and it's all we have, and it probably is out of date and maybe not accurate when you get near the edges of everything shown on the map, I'm sure.
Well, it's interesting. It does say under essential services, it only says other essential services, but that falls under a planning board approval. So there's latitude there is where I read that. And as someone mentioned, it'll probably be, the best bet would be to have the town attorney make sure that that's the way we're reading this.
All right.
I would also ask the town attorney if a field engineer survey given to the planning board as proof of non-existence of the area would negate the use of the land use map.
We can ask her that. I don't know. I wouldn't
yeah.
be too hopeful on that one.
The opinion of the town attorney on whether or not, you know, these are essential services. However, whichever the outcome of that would drive whether or not we need to change the layout of the site plan.
Right, yeah.
Which would stall our, you need to have information. Well, you just need public notice. You don't, Frank, when do we have to submit complete applications to you?
Well, the board is going to be expecting on July the 29th to have all of the submissions required in place. And the only thing that they can, that you can put off would be if it was something that was a state approval. Okay, so you could, you know, it could be approved except for the fact you don't have the submissions from the state, but only state type
Yeah,
licenses that will.
but we need to have a complete application submitted to you by
Oh,
what?
Okay, the complete application should be into us by July 15th, which it gives us which the ordinance requires 14 days prior to the meeting. So that would be July the 15th. But I would like to see it before that, though. I'd like to review it. Is Lisa, right? Is you're the contact point for the plan?
Yeah, I'll be putting the application together.
Okay, so what I would like to do is, before you send me the whole package, is review what you put together and review that with Lisa. And then if everything's there that the board's looking for, then send the full package.
Understood.
You could send the whole thing if you wanted to, but just trying to save you a little bit of money there.
Yeah. How quickly does the town attorney typically get back to you? I know that's a open question.
She's
Well,
pretty good about getting back to us within a couple of days.
Okay, great. So we can wait to hear from you on that, and then depending on the outcome, if we need to make some adjustments to the site plan on our end, we'll still have enough time to do that by, and then get materials back to Frank by, you know, maybe shoot for the weekend to look it over.
No good bells.
She's a little fast in the hot weather.
I had a deer in the field that the dog was barking at.
All right, we all set?
Sounds good.
We'll let you know what the attorney says then as soon as we have an answer, Tim.
Okay, great. And we didn't schedule the site visit, though. We just scheduled the next board meeting. Are we doing a site visit or no?
We are. We're going to do it after the first meeting, Jay, and Sandy, or do you want to do it before that?
Matter of me.
I would do it after.
I'd do it after we know a little bit more about the project.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, very good.
So when's that notice have to go out, though? Does that have to be 14 days prior?
No.
For the sidewalk?
You should give it a
Yeah,
week.
I just don't want to go to the next meeting on the 29th and then not have enough time to get the site walk before potentially the next meeting.
Oh, even if we did it, 19 days or something, we'll still be able to get it in one way or another. It won't be on a Wednesday, say.
So we're sort of anticipating meeting on the 29th and then another meeting after that.
Yes.
As well,
Right.
as well as.
I think the meeting after that would be, the meeting after that would be a public hearing, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the final approval. Right?
In one night. Hopefully.
Hopefully.
Ideally, yeah.
Okay, very good. I'm with you.
All right.
Sounds good.
Okay,
Thank you. We'll
Thank
see you in a month.
thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. David, do we have the applicant for the shoreline zoning with us? Are you still with us, David?
I am. I just forget to unmute myself.
Oh, okay.
Ray and Sarah are still with us, and I will bring them over. And
You have to make a motion to extend this meeting because it is 9 o'clock.
6 minutes.
I got 8:54.
It's all going to be done in 6 minutes? Phew.
Of course.
It's up to past the board wants to decide.
Jeez.
This is a very simple application.
Oh, good.
Bottom line is they want to take a 48-foot shed and the whole building is within 75 feet. And they want to attach that 48-foot to make a mudroom attached to the existing camp. And I couldn't do that because it's inside the 100-foot line. It's a very simple thing.
So,
The existing
Frank, this was an application, some of this was approved previously. They're looking to continue the work and then move the shed, attach it to the building as a mudroom
Yeah,
and
that's it.
enclose the deck, the screened-in deck as living space.
That was already approved.
That was already approved. They're continuing that, though.
Yeah,
The existing
This
approval
side-
on, the existing approval on this site, how much of the 30% was used for?
well, this was done, this started back when Ford owned the property, when that was the 30% use, but now they no longer look at the 30% use. It's what's allowed in 25 feet, 50 feet, and below 75 feet.
Okay.
Okay, and the way it is now, Jay, it doesn't matter which of the footage you're back, whether it's 25, 75, or 100. If you have existing square footage, you can automatically put them on. Okay, so it's a new formula. They don't use that. So what they're really doing, the main thing they're asking for here, they have a continuum of what was approved way back, and they want to continue to finish it because they didn't have time. And so all they want to do to change is move that 48-foot square footage and connect it to the back. It's on the roadside. So they're not increasing footprint on the lot, and bottom line, that's it.
Right, that building they're talking about putting onto the end to make the mudroom already exists.
Yes,
Yeah.
it does. It's just shed right now. They've got diagrams that they put with it, and I think they sent you pictures in there,
Yep.
your packet too. So
Okay.
if you look, you'll see that little tiny shed, and that's all this is about.
Does the applicant have anything to add, or? Because I'm good with it.
It's for
Pretty
That's
simple application.
We tried to make it simple and just took the existing square footage and size that of the shed and added it onto the back. But if Frank and Sarah and I do the calculations and it ends up being, we're allowed to do 20 feet bigger or something like that, I mean, would that be also appropriate if we could just go to the, close to the maximum we could have?
Well, that's a different request now. If you're asking that, then you'd have to give us a different application showing what the 20% increase was.
Okay, then
And
we'll
I
leave it
believe
as
you
it
have
is.
Just hand
You
it
do
over
have,
till tonight.
you have an issue with 20% lot coverage, okay? Because you've utilized that 20%.
That's fine.
You have
No,
very little.
The space as it is, it would be a big help to the size of the camp, so we're fine with that.
Okay.
The only question I would have, is there an erosion control plan been submitted?
I have no idea. This was a prior application. This was under a prior permit.
Yeah, everything
So-
that's gonna happen on the camp going forward, the structure is done. The foundations are in, the footings are in, the structure's built. We need to close in the deck if we choose to with a roof and walls.
So
And
along with the permit, Frank, does an erosion control plan come also, or?
No, there
No?
wasn't one required at the time.
Well, the
It's-
photograph-
Is the-
it's-
The earth moving is all done at this point.
correct.
You're not changing the footprint on the site.
right, get that. But there's work being done on the site.
Yeah, where the shed is back into the house is basically level.
Okay. And so with the building permit, whatever erosion control plans are required to be put in place, they're going to put in place.
If necessary, they would definitely have to.
If they're doing a roof, I see things like that. They're going to be moving the shed. There's going to be people constructing. So you're only 30 feet away from the water, so there should be an erosion control plan in place along with that work.
Well, anytime there's soil disturbance of over 1 foot, there has to be a certified soil erosion contractor on site.
Right.
That's what I'm talking about.
I would move that this application be approved under 12C1 and 12C3, which is the relocation on the property by the plan submitted.
Sandy,
Second that.
moved and seconded that the application be approved under 12C1 and 12C3. Any other discussion? Sandy, how do you vote?
Yep.
Jay?
Yep.
Approve?
Oh, and the clock
Carried.
turned 9 o'clock.
You
Well
just made it.
Wait.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Sorry for the wait.
Enjoy.
It was just one of those meetings.
Yeah, no,
No.
it's interesting hearing what's going on.
Thanks. And on a personal note, my grandfather had a grandfather clock, and every time I stayed with my grandparents, that sound, and I never hear one anymore. It's really lovely to hear your.
Oh, thank you.
Brings me back to being 8 years old, which I'm far from. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Frank. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.
We still have the minutes from the last meeting to approve.
Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes?
Yes.
Yes,
There's
I
one
have two. The only item I have, Nancy, real quick one, line 21. Dorothy Havey was not absent. She has resigned, so she's no longer.
I wasn't aware of that.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
sorry. Mhm.
I didn't think you were. That's why that was in there.
Okay,
That was the only change I had.
all right.
What was that, Mike? February 12th?
The meetings of May 27th.
May
Oh,
27th.
the last one? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That has to do with the subdivision. I had some items on that. I have a problem, unfortunately, with the March 11th minutes. And I'm talking about lines 136, 137, and 138.
I can't help you that. I don't have them.
I know, I'm talking to the board, so.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I don't have, I can't put my fingers on that one right now, Jay.
Okay.
But go ahead and say what they were.
Well, what it says is a motion to approve. The board passed over Articles 11 and 12 on general agreement that these are redundant and have been covered in Article 10. I'm going to have to make a motion that the board revisit that subdivision approval because the ordinance clearly states that we have to review anything under Articles 10, 11, and 12. I don't know how that happened, but in my opinion, he now has a not approved subdivision permit because it was not approved, not reviewed under sections 11 and 12. And I'd be very reluctant to have these minutes go forward as approved with that wording in there because the town attorney has no defense against anybody objecting to the approval of the subdivision because it wasn't approved under Articles 11 and 12 if we let it go. So we need to talk about it.
All right, so this is, were you at that meeting?
No,
And which meeting, what was the date of that meeting, Jay?
March 11th.
All right. And what lines of the minutes?
Well, it says 136, 137, 138.
All right, let me find that and I'll read through it.
Okay.
All right, we're not voting on those minutes anyhow.
Okay.
But you
We are
weren't even
voting.
here?
We are voting on May 27th.
We are voting on May 27th.
Okay.
If someone moves,
Yeah, I'm okay with those.
second that, Sandy? But moved and second, you Sandy, Sandy, did you second that? Approve the minutes?
Sandy?
I'll second that we approve the minutes. I was.
Okay, that sounds good.
It's been moved and seconded. I'll vote we approve the minutes. Jay?
I approve.
Okay. Anyone move that we adjourn?
I'll move, we adjourn.
I'll second it. I'm in favor of adjourning. Jay?
Yep.
Thank you, Nancy,
Okay.
for the
thank
extra few minutes there.
you. Right, all right.
I'll look at that, Jay.
Mike, when you do that, look at the first paragraph in Article 10, 11, and 12. Read the first paragraphs on all three of those standard sections.
I can't hear a word you guys are saying.
Okay. Good night.
Good night.